It is September the 3rd, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. Well, it is pretty late right now. That's the reason I'm up here on my front porch filming today's video. It has gotten dark on me. I tried to go ahead and go down there and film, but it's just far too dark for me to film. Then I thought about running lights and all that kind of stuff down there, and I don't have power down there. So if I was going to do it, I would have to run drop cords down there to do it, and it would have taken me far too long. So once again, I'm just up here on the front porch going ahead and getting today's video knocked out. I should have done it earlier today, but I just had so much other stuff going on. I thought I was going to be able to get it done in time, and it just didn't work out for me. But at least I'm getting the video done. So what I wanted to talk about today is something that's rather embarrassing. Something that used to happen to me quite a lot, and I might have touched on it on here a couple of times, maybe. I can't even really think about any times I've ever even talked about it. But like I said, I might have talked about this a couple of times on here, but it's one of those things I just don't really like talking about because, like I said, it is pretty embarrassing. But I'm going to talk about it today because it's one of those reasons that we're staying sober. This is definitely one of those reasons to not drink today, because this can happen, and I'm gonna go ahead and get into what that is that I wanted to talk about that's so embarrassing and happened to me so many times back in the past was wetting myself when I was asleep. It happened quite a few times. You want to talk about feeling bad. You wake up in the morning or in the middle of the night and realize that you are soaked with urine. That's one of those things that, you think that you leave behind you in the past when you were a little kid. And here you are, a grown adult, wetting yourself in your sleep. And it would only happen to me if I got completely wasted drunk. It's not like I was wetting my bed, when I was sober, which I never was sober. Very few far in between I would be sober, when I was trying to get sober, maybe a week or something like that. But, those are the only times I'd be sober. But, once again, it's not like I was, wetting myself, all the time. But it would happen when I got like really, really, really drunk. I've spoken about this, but I would get off of work and I would come home, go sit on my back porch, and I'd still be in my work clothes when I got off work. I never took the time to change out of them, and I would go sit on my back porch and just drink and smoke cigarettes. Until I felt like it was time to go inside for the night. And, there were a lot of nights I'd sit out there until, who knows what time. I'd get off work at, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I would sit back there for, hours. There were some nights that, I would come crawling in the house at 3, 4 a.m. I'd been sitting out there all by myself all night long. A lot of times I'm sitting out there, I got music playing on my phone, or, I'm watching some YouTube video or listening to a podcast, or maybe I was listening to music, but, 99% of the time I was just sitting out back by myself, all by myself, just drinking. And that was my happy place. That's just where I wanted to be, just sitting on my back porch all alone, not talking to anybody, nothing, just sitting there all by myself with myself, my thoughts, my bottle, and my smokes, and my phone. And, that would be my night. And, I'd sit out there until I got completely wasted drunk, and then I'd come inside and I'd plop down on my couch, and I'd pass out. Sometimes I'd try to make myself something to eat, and, often I would just wake up on the couch. My wife would have to come in there and turn the TV off because, I'd pass out with the TV going. And it would wake her up because I'd have the volume turned all the way up. And, when I woke up in the morning, I'd wake up, completely discombobulated, not knowing what was going on. And, the first thing that I would notice is that my pants would be soaking wet. And the first thing that would go through my mind is because this used to happen to me a lot in the past as well. Especially when I was a beer drinker, I would stick the beer between my legs when I would like be sitting on the couch sometimes, or I'd like lean it beside me, so I'd be kind of like positioned on the couch, turned sideways so I could see the TV. And the coffee table was kind of far away for me to reach, so I would just kind of stick my beer like right beside me, so it'd be kind of like positioned like right beside my waist, kind of leaning up against me on the couch. And a lot of times I'd fall asleep, and when I woke up in the morning, my beer or my cocktail or whatever that I had leaned up against me would fall over and spill. So a lot of times it would be my beer or my cocktail that had fallen over and had soaked my clothes. I know this is gross, but I'm just gonna tell you guys, it's embarrassing, but when I would wake up in the morning, and I would feel that my pants were all wet, I'd have to rub my pants and see what it was. Was it beer? Was it a mixed drink, or was it urine? Why that mattered, because I had to get up and clean the couch, and depending on what I needed to clean the couch with to get that out of there, if it was just beer or a cocktail or something, I could just clean it with a wet towel. But if it was urine, I needed to get some something to disinfect the couch with, and I really had to get in there and scrub it down. It's just embarrassing to even say this on video right now, but it's just the truth, guys. Thinking about waking up in the morning with my clothes soaking wet, and then having to smell what that was. I'm rubbing my fingers on it and then smelling it to see, is this pee or is that a drink? I mean, it's just embarrassing, but that's what used to happen to me when I was in active addiction. And there were many mornings when I woke up 5, 6 a.m. and I would wake up and my pants would be warm. I had just urinated on myself, and I guess the act of doing that and my pants getting soaked in the process would just wake me up. And, I could feel the warmth in my clothes. And, there's nothing more disgusting than taking your clothes off after you've peed on yourself. They're all stuck to you, and you're trying to get these wet clothes off, and they barely want to come off, and you can barely get your underwear off because they're stuck to you, and it's just gross. And like I said, they used to happen to me quite a lot. Did it happen to me every single night? No. But did it happen to me once a month or something like that? Yeah, it did. It wasn't even once a week, but it was at least once a month. I'd wake up completely soaked in my own urine. I got so drunk that I just passed out, and I guess I couldn't even wake up. And the crazy thing about it is, a lot of the times when I would have I would wake up in the morning and I was soaked with my own urine, I would remember that I was having a dream where I was using the restroom. In my dream, I would be peeing in the woods, or peeing in a toilet, or peeing in a public restroom or something like that. That's what was going on in my dream. So in my dream, I'm using the restroom, and then I guess in real life, I went ahead and used the restroom for real, just in my clothes. And like I said, I used to fall asleep on the couch all the time. There was period of time, sorry I keep hitting this camera, guys, but there was a period of time that probably 7, 8 years or something like that I just slept on the couch for the most part, because I was working these really late hours, having to get up really early in the morning. I just didn't want to wake my wife up. I wanted to allow her to be able to sleep, especially on the weekends, so I would just fall asleep on the couch. But on the flip side of that too, there were a lot of nights I was just too drunk. I couldn't even get up to go to the bed. I would come inside from sitting out back for 3 hours after I'd gotten off work, and be completely wasted drunk, bumping into everything, I remember walking in that back door so many nights and just ramming into the door frame. And it would shake the whole house, when I would do so. And then, stumble into the kitchen, open up the refrigerator door, stand there for half an hour as I just stared into outer space. Finally would find something to grab out of there and heat up. And 90% of the time, I would wake up the next morning and the food would still be in the microwave or something. I never even touched it. Or I left everything just sitting out on the counter. There would be a big container of spaghetti sitting on the counter and a big container of garlic bread that was in there for leftovers and, whatever else. And I just left it sitting on the kitchen counter all night long because I was getting myself a plate of leftovers, and then I don't know what happened. Somewhere in my drunken stupor, I just left everything sitting there, and, maybe I went and just decided to go sit on the couch for a minute while it heated up in the microwave. I really don't know. There were just so many nights where I woke up, the next morning, and my wife would be really upset with me because there'd be this huge mess in the kitchen. I left everything out, and everything went bad, so not only was it, wasting money, but I was wasting a lot of hard work and time that I put into making this food, just right down the drain, because, I got wasted drunk and just left it sitting out when I was trying to make myself something to eat. And, like I said, majority of the time, I didn't even eat the food. There were a lot of mornings I would wake up and it would be sitting on the coffee table. I never even touched it. There's a weird light up there in the sky. But, like I said, it's not something that happened every single day, but it happened more than I would like to admit. And, more than anything, this is one of those reasons that we're not drinking today. So we're not wetting ourselves anymore. If you've done that, if that's happened to you in the past, talk about a reason to stay sober. So we're not embarrassing ourselves, by, peeing ourselves in the middle of the night. That's just, if you've got, a health condition that causes that to happen to you, I'm really sorry. And this isn't a video, making fun of anybody that does, wet themselves in the middle of the night or anything like that, because I understand that, there are medical conditions that, where people, they just can't control their bladder and things like that happen. And, once again, I'm not making fun of or, saying that people that do that, there's anything wrong with that, that it's just one of those things that happens. I'm saying for myself that I could have controlled it because, I was getting so intoxicated that I was wetting myself. And the thing is that since I've gotten sober, I haven't wet myself one time. Matter of fact, that might be wrong. I might have one time when I was really sick and I just couldn't get up out of the bed. As a matter of fact, I've wet myself in the hospital quite a few times, and coming home being very ill, I have. I take that back. But it's been a while, and like I said, being sober, staying sober, we can prevent that from happening for the most part. Who wants to wake up in the morning after being hungover like that, and then you got to clean your own pee up? That's not a good way to wake up when you're hungover. You wake up, your head's splitting down the middle, you feel like you're about to puke everywhere, you have absolutely no energy whatsoever, you just feel like you got into a car accident, and you wake up and you're, like I said, you're sleeping on your couch like I was, and your clothes are soaked with urine, the couch is soaked with urine, and now you feel horrible, and now you gotta clean this mess up. It's just not something that anybody wants to do. I know that for a fact. And once again, if we stay sober today, that's another thing that we do not have to worry about. This is one of those things that I haven't really ever wanted to talk about on here because, once again, it is rather embarrassing. But, like I said, I felt like today was an important day to talk about this, because I'll tell you what, if there is a reason to stay sober today, that is a darn good reason to stay sober, because it's embarrassing. And, you know, once again, it can be prevented. And staying sober today is a really good way to avoid that from happening to you. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. Thank you so much for being here and watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to try to get tomorrow's video filmed a little bit earlier in the morning, so I'm not dealing with this tomorrow. And once I get my video filmed tomorrow, it's done, and I can just go ahead and move on with my chores for the rest of the day and get done what I need to get done. And I don't have to worry about it. I might try to go ahead and get tomorrow's video uploaded a little bit earlier as well, so you guys just have it up. But like I said, other than that, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you watching, and let's stay sober one more day. You know, yesterday's gone. Tomorrow is not here yet, but we do have right now. We have right now, right this moment. We have the decision. The choice is ours. Are we going to stay sober, or are we going to drink? And I vote for let's stay sober. There's only a couple hours left in the day, guys. And, you know, after 12 o'clock, day's over, and it's a new day. And we can start over fresh tomorrow. And, you know, if you did relapse today, it's okay. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself that, you know, I just lost 6 months of sobriety, it's all down the drain, or anything like that, because it isn't. Those 6 months are still there. They didn't go anywhere. You know, all that hard work that you put into that, that's still there. It was just one bump in the road, you know. If you did relapse, just pick yourself back up and try again. And I know that's easier said than done, but it can be done. I know that for a fact. So, you know, once again, if you did slip on Labor Day or whatever, and, you know, you relapse on Monday, and the past couple of days you've been drinking because you got caught back in that cycle, it's okay. Just try again. Maybe try tomorrow. Maybe wait till this weekend when you've got some time off, and because you know that you're going to go through some pretty not so fun withdrawals. You know, maybe you just need to wait till the weekend. Maybe you need to cut back for the next couple of days until you get there so you can deal with it. Whatever you have to do, just remember that you can do this. And just, you know, falling off the wagon, relapsing for a couple days, 1 day, 1 week, whatever it is, we don't have to start all the way over from scratch. Like I said, it's just a bump in the road. All that time in the past that you were sober is still there. All that time that you did not drink or use is time that you did not cause damage to your organs, or damage to your brain, or damage to your friends and your family and your relationships with them. And, you know, all those days that you weren't lying about the fact that you're using and things like that. It's just, like I said, that all that time is still there. And I think a lot of the time that when we do relapse, no matter how much sobriety that we had before that, a lot of times we feel like we just threw it all out the window and we have to start over. And I just want to say that's not the case, guys. All that time is still there. Just pick yourself back up and try again. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. Once again, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you. And until tomorrow, I will see you guys then. You guys have a great rest of your night. I love you guys so much. Bye-bye.